From KAMR Local 4 News, your local election headquarters. This is Politics Today with Jackie Kingston.
What is the plan to mitigate the contamination of PFAS in water here on the High Plains? We'll find out from the company tasked with doing so. Amarillo teachers are getting a one-time stipend to help pay for back-to-school supplies, how much they're getting, and what that will cost our district. Hi, everyone. Thanks, as always, for watching Politics Today. We begin this week in Clovis, where the company that was hired by the city of Clovis back in February to help deal with PFAS contamination held a meeting last Wednesday. That's part of our continuing I-Team investigation. King Industries presented some short-term steps during the meeting, including constant water sampling and drilling additional monitor wells. They've also mentioned the development of a groundwater model to predict the movement of PFAS. Based on that model, they would make a pump to deal with any scenario. They say they'll continue researching using different treatment techniques to help abate the contamination. A few other options they presented include slowing the movement of PFAS contamination by placing a clay cap over the area. Another option is to use a centralized pump to treat the groundwater. To see our full coverage from our investigation, you can go to our website, myhighplains.com. The Amarillo City Council discussed an increase in the tax rate last week. That increase would be about a $1.68 a month tax on a $100,000 home, just more than $20 a year. That increase is to help pay for 10 new positions for the Amarillo Fire Department, 3 new positions for Amarillo Animal Management and Welfare, and increases to street repair funding. And hey, if you are one of those people who likes to complain about the tax rate, a lot of us are, go talk it over with the City Council, won't you? There'll be public meetings before the council officially votes on the increase. Those will be on September 3rd and September 10th. The second reading to ban the use of motorized scooters in Amarillo passed the City Council last week. They're talking specifically about those pay-as-you-go scooters that use an app to operate. City Manager Jared Miller says the City Council passed the ordinance due to safety concerns. Miller referenced bigger cities that have the scooters like Austin and says they're often left on the walkways, blocking pedestrian access.
So we want to make sure that it's safe and that it also is attractive in our downtown area. It doesn't mean not forever. It means there's some things we need to address first, and then, yeah, we're completely open to it.
So as he said, not forever. He says if a company comes to them with a proposal to address their safety concerns, the City Council may consider lifting that ban. Amarillo teachers are getting some money from the district to help get their classrooms in order for the school year. The Amarillo ISD Board of Trustees voted unanimously Monday night to approve a one-time $125 stipend for each teacher, counselor, nurse, and librarian to purchase student supplies. AISD School Board President Robin Malone says the stipend is meant to assist those employees as they regularly spend their own money, $400 on average, making sure students have what they need to succeed in the classroom. Aaron Phillips, an AISD teacher and president of the Amarillo Education Association, says teachers are appreciative of the stipend and hope that it will bring lasting change.
It's not uncommon to see teachers spending hundreds of dollars a year just to make sure their kids are learning. I think it's a good sign that they're aware of the issues impacting our staff and our students, and that it's a step towards making sure that we're taking care of the people who are taking care of our kids.
Phillips says ultimately he'd like to see real, lasting pay raises for teachers so that when they purchase school supplies, it won't affect their bottom line. Stepping away from education news just for a moment to bring you an update on the city of Borger, which was hit by a ransomware attack last week. As of Wednesday afternoon, billing, financial, and other business services were operational. The city is now able to process utility and municipal court payments. Vital statistics like birth and death records, those have also been restored. The city is still checking every computer before reintroducing them to city servers. Back here in Amarillo now, Park Hills Elementary officially has a new sign showing off their new name. Check it out. The new sign was completed before the first day of school. The school board voted to change the name from Lee Elementary to Park Hills Elementary last month. A new bond proposal for Dumas ISD will be added to the November 5th ballot. The $107 million bond will help update aging school facilities. If approved, 3 new energy-efficient replacement elementary schools will be constructed. The junior high and high school will have secure entryways, along with kitchen remodels in those schools as well, up to the voters there in November. And today we have a bit of a special morning. All of our stories for the rest of the show will be focused on schools and students and how to make them safer. Next. Next, we're headed to Weatherford to learn more about a school threat assessment they're using and how it can help other districts across the state. I'm Jackie Kingston. You're watching Politics Today from your local election headquarters.
Who need to be identified and helped as potential serious risks to themselves and others.
Does a student have access to weapons? Do they abuse animals? And do they have a mental health diagnosis? Starting this school year, those are the types of questions a new state law requires Texas districts to ask if a student makes a threat. Politics Today's Tom Miller traveled to Weatherford, a district down near Wichita Falls, that has been the example many districts are modeling their own safety assessments after. He sits down with the Weatherford ISD Safety and Security Director to learn more about the safety upgrades that they've made after a major bond passed back in 2015.
Diaz is one of the first to bring the threat assessment screening model to a school campus in Texas.
We have a screening process with questions. Key questions have been identified by the Secret Service, by the FBI in assessing threats. We see how they answer those questions. We're looking at social factors, we're looking at other influences, peer pressure, different things that could be going on in their lives.
Specifically, any threat with the intention of causing bodily injury. Students are deemed either level 1, less severe, or level 2, a heightened risk for carrying out a threat. From last December through May, the district conducted threat assessments on 71 of its 8,000 students.
During that interview, do you dislike this teacher? Why? And if they start to provide reasons, and in that process you ask, do you really feel about hurting? Do you understand what hurting someone truly means?
Sometimes students do, which is when the red flags start going up and the screening process becomes more elaborate, requiring Diaz to fill out an 18-page assessment with questions like, how easily can this student access weapons? Is there a scheduled attack? What is their social status among peers? Do they have a mental health diagnosis? And what kind of family life do they have?
And based on the information we have, we develop a management strategy. That may involve safety plans to make sure that everyone is safe, and also counseling plans. And we assess how well we're doing.
Diaz points to early data showing the threat assessment model is working. Of the 71 students flagged, 70% of the potential threats were de-escalated, 23% stayed as the lower level Tier 1 incidents, while 7% escalated to Tier 2.
Yeah, every camera is connected.
If this all sounds like a novel experiment, it'll soon be a reality where you live too. Starting this year, every school district in the state is required to have a similar student threat assessment model. What do you think about this student threat assessment?
I think it's an important component of keeping our students safe.
Chief Ashley Gonzalez says having this kind of information on high-risk students could be the difference between de-escalating a potential threat and getting caught off guard.
Some of those times, you know, those issues can escalate into self-harm or violence against others, and that's what we're trying to prevent.
Part of the benefit, when a student switches schools, there won't be any guessing or reading between the lines when it comes to past disciplinary issues. Instead, a completed threat assessment will be available for administrators to look through.
We want to make sure that if a student has been identified that they continue to receive services. And just because they're moving to another campus, another school, or promoting to a different grade, that doesn't mean the services stop and that information is not shared.
Weatherford also passes along the threat assessment to other school districts if a student transfers, so long as the new district requests it. Like the threat assessment itself, Diaz hopes this type of sharing can serve as a model for how Texas schools interact with each other when it comes to safety and security.
If I'm a counselor and I've developed an effective strategy with this child, I want to make sure that the strategies that I'm employing are going to be handed off to the next counselor so that we can keep that child on that successful pathway.
This is something that every district in the state will begin implementing this school year, and it'll be up to the Texas School Safety Center at Texas State University to audit districts and determine which are non-compliant. Governor Greg Abbott held his first Texas Safety Commission meeting this week. The group was created by the governor after the deadly shooting at an El Paso Walmart on August 3rd. But before overall safety was the governor's priority, school safety was after last year's Santa Fe High School shooting. We'll show you what laws the governor has enacted ahead of the school year to help keep your students safe right after this. A problem too common in America came to Texas last year, and state leaders vowed that they would act. A year after 8 students and 2 teachers died at Santa Fe High School near Houston, what action did we take to prevent it from happening again? Politics Today's Phil Prazen walks us through the solutions state lawmakers are now tapping to save our students.
It was emotional.
Here he is, Officer Bandit, Maestro.
Serious.
Nobody's shooting just Democrats, nobody's shooting just Republicans.
And different than what usually comes after a school shooting.
If it happens in a tiny little sleepy town of Santa Fe, Texas, it could happen anywhere.
There's been a shooting at a school in Santa Fe, Texas. It's outside of Galveston.
10 people were killed and another 10 were hurt.
It's just like surreal, kind of. It's just like the unimaginable, and it happened.
In the days after the Santa Fe High School shooting, Governor Abbott called school, government, and law enforcement leaders here to the Capitol. A small but important detail showed the meetings would be inclusive. Gun control advocates were also invited.
I think there was an acknowledgement around the table that, yeah, that is an issue.
The roundtables led Governor Abbott to lay out 40 recommendations the next week.
This plan is a starting point, not an ending place.
A series of options, including gun safety campaigns, communications and security upgrades, and more training.
I'm not taking any strategies off the table. I have been and will continue to work with legislators to build consensus on proposals.
Some ideas could happen immediately. Others had to wait until lawmakers returned in January for the 86th legislative session. Then, Santa Fe area Senator Larry Taylor spearheaded the effort on school security.
I wake up every morning thinking about the parents. As a father of 3, a grandfather of 2. We have to stop this.
A booming economy meant Texas had more money than expected to spend on security measures, redesigns, equipment, and training. Days of hearings and votes moved Senate Bill 11 along the process.
When you have that, when you go to multiple young people's funerals back to back within a few short days, it's very difficult, and you don't want to do that again. That's why we have to get this done.
The bill passed 30-1 in the Senate and 137-8 in the House.
Senate Bill 11, making schools safer, is now law in the state of Texas.
Governor Abbott signed Senate Bill 11 into law June 6th, and it took effect immediately. Senate Bill 11 has more than $100 million in security improvements. Now, each district will get nearly $10 per student to pay for new structures, security guards, training, and equipment. It also gives the Texas Student Safety Center at Texas State University in San Marcos a lot of authority. They'll hire 25 more staff members to audit Texas school districts on a lengthy list of new requirements about how to protect against and practice for an active shooter. If districts are not in compliance 6 months after an audit, the Texas Education Agency could appoint a conservator over the district. Still no changes after that, the state agency can appoint a board of managers to run the security for the school. And finally, each district must create threat assessment teams and school safety committees to advise the school district.
The latest roundtable discussions, the governor is holding are based on the ones that he held after the Santa Fe shooting. Mental health reform is also part of the governor's solution on gun violence. Coming up, how that idea is put into practice in our schools. State leaders dedicated millions of dollars to new security structures, planning, and training after last year's deadly Santa Fe school shooting. Earlier, we walked you through lawmakers' plans going into effect this school year. Now, Phil Prazen joins us once again to take a closer look at sweeping mental health reform that is also part of the solution.
State lawmakers were trying something new. They searched for the line between protecting child privacy and knowing when violent thoughts could turn into violent acts. It was a touchy issue for some with privacy concerns, like these parents who spoke at the Capitol.
As a mom, I will not stand by quietly.
Amen.
And while elected officials on both sides of the aisle work to destroy my state and my nation, and especially my children, I will not be quiet.
But the political will to do something after students and teachers were killed at Santa Fe succeeded in working through those concerns. The state will soon play an active role in student mental health. Texas has a long history of shortages in counselors and social workers, in psychiatrists, and in 2018, voters sent lawmakers to Austin to fix the mental health crisis that kept bubbling violently into view. Governor Greg Abbott named student mental health, along with school safety, an emergency item. Republican Senator Jane Nelson from Flower Mound, Texas, would make the cause hers.
There was a clamor for hardening our schools, putting metal detectors, and that's fine, but that doesn't address the root problem, and that is there are some children who need to be identified and helped as potential serious risks to themselves and others.
She had to find a way to provide more mental health services to the sprawling state of Texas, where communities can be geographically, culturally, and economically diverse. She decided to lean on a health infrastructure that already existed, pumping $100 million through the 13 health-related universities of higher education. They'd form the backbone to the Child Mental Health Care Consortium. Each university would partner with state agencies and nonprofits to provide child psychiatry centers local mental health professionals, school districts could tap into. To address that issue of privacy, none of this could be used without permission from a student's family.
So I want to clarify that no student health data would be compromised under this bill.
That is correct. And I don't think anybody on this floor is more protective of our privacy than I am.
The idea passed unanimously in the Senate, but needed fast action from House leaders to overcome a conservative Republican who found a procedural mishap that nearly scuttled the entire plan in the House. There, House Speaker Dennis Bonnen and his allies attached the consortium to the school safety reform bill that already passed, and the entire package was approved, and soon Governor Abbott signed it into law. Nelson sat to his right.
I heard from so many teachers and parents and pediatricians that they just didn't know where to go. They needed more than what was available to them.
In Central Texas, the regional hub will be the Dell Medical School at the University of Texas at Austin. In the next year, they plan to house counseling and mental health professionals students can use. Also, they hope to set up a wide array of telemedicine services so communities on the outskirts of Central Texas can use those services over internet video.
With most campus tragedies happening in high schools, there's a lot of focus on improving mental health services for teenagers, but a longtime expert in the field at Texas Tech University says shaping a child's brain starts at birth. Dr. Ann Master-George says when it comes to how our mind develops, think about a tennis match, the back and forth, the serve and return. It's very similar to what happens as soon as we are born.
A baby cries, a mother responds. A baby coos, a mother responds. A baby smiles, a mother responds. If there is a mother who is absent, neglectful, depressed, the baby doesn't get this, what we call serve and return.
Dr. Master-George says as time goes on, a child without a primary attachment figure in their life can have toxic stress. Adverse life experiences continue adding up. That, coupled with a child who has no tools to deal with the stress in a healthy way, can lead to even more issues. So the earlier someone positive shows up in a child's life and demonstrates what a healthy relationship looks like, the better. She calls them buffers. Those buffers can be a neighbor, a grandparent, or even a teacher.
Mental health is a very complex entity, but the ways in which you can connect with individuals is very simple. So, for example, in preschools, teachers often greet every student who walks in the classroom, and they have a choice of whether to do a high five or a hug or a fist bump. What happens is oftentimes we coddle and hug and interact with very young children, and then in our culture we seem to stop at a particular point in time. Like, you don't need, school-age children they don't need that. We don't need to talk to them. They're fine. But in fact, they need that.
Dr. Mastergeorge didn't want to be specific, but did say school-wide initiatives work the best, which involve the family and home environment as well. We have more to come. Stay with us. Have you checked us out on social media? You can like us over on Facebook. We'd love to hear what's on your mind. You can find me there. I'm also on Twitter, Jackie Kingston, plus the number 1. Find me there. Tell me what's going on in your neck of the woods. You can also stay up with all the latest political news with us throughout the week on myhighplains.com. There you can also find more on our series, Save Our Students, some of the stories that you saw today, and much more. Big props to our team in Austin who put that together. See you later. Have a good week.